Yeah.
Okay, so if this is actually the halacha from when we learned about general prayer and preparation for prayer. So, Rav Melamed explains in general about Chachamim instituted the washing of one's hands every morning and the recital of the blessing. Asher Kicham Tzivanu. Literally, He has sanctified us with Hashem's commandments and commanded us to concerning washing of the hands. A person's hands endow them with the capability of function to function in this world. With their hands, they can give and receive, hold and deliver, handle the different belongings, and care for the body. However, along with, and perhaps because of, their versatility, one's hands also allow in all the dealings of this world and tend to get dirty and contaminated, both physically and spiritually, more than any other limb. Whenever it is necessary to elevate and distance ourselves from from the lower aspects of of this world in order to engage in manners of sanctity, we wash our hands. This is the general significance of washing hands, including the washing in the morning. However, the Rishonim disagree as to um, sorry, I went too far. As to the exact reason behind the morning washing. According to the Rosh, since a person's hands are constantly moving, it is almost certain that during one's sleep they touch parts of the body that normally are covered. Therefore, in order to purify them before Shacharit, before the morning service, the Chachamim instituted the washing of one's hands. According to the Rashba, every morning people are created anew, as it is written in Lamentations. They are renewed every morning. Abundant is your faithfulness, Chadashina Bekarim, Rabbi Munatecha, which is actually the words that we use for Modani. A person goes to sleep tired, gives their soul over to the Creator, and arises in the morning with renewed strength. This new creation should be sanctified and designated for serving Hashem by washing one's hands in the morning. The main nafkamina, I don't think we ever talked about this um, term before. Nafkamina literally means the difference between these two opinions of the Rosh and the Rashba is if somebody goes to sleep wearing gloves, then according to the Rosh, where even if they touch any part of the body that is unclean, um, wearing gloves would technically say that you don't have to wash your hands because your hands are clean as they didn't touch anything. But according to the Rashba, we're talking about the new soul, and just like in conversion, when a person immerses in the mikvah and gets their new soul, then every morning, even if we did wear gloves, we don't. We still have to wash our hands because it is like we were uh, um, technically dead. The Gemara in Brachos says that sleep is 1/60th of death, and so it would still apply even if we had gloves on for that matter. And so now going into women's prayer and women's mitzvot, I think that we can understand this a lot better. So, the essential objective of Netilat Yadayim before Shacharit is cleanliness, as it is written in Tehillim. I wash my hands clean, and as detailed in Brachot 15a. The reason for washing one's hands before a meal is purification and sanctification, similar to the washing of the Kohanim's hands in the kior, the lever, or the basin before serving in a temple. Although there is a difference between the objectives of the two washings, meaning that of eating and that eating bread and that of cleanliness or spiritual cleanliness, sages instituted the morning Netilat Yadayim based on the model of washing before a meal. And even the bracha has the same wording. The chatchila, when washing in the morning, one should take care that all the necessary requirements for washing one's hands before the meal are met. And so these requirements are the following, and they're mostly based on the idea of the rosh of cleanliness, that there is at least a revi'it of water. A revi'it is 86 cc, about 3 liquid ounces, that she washes with a vessel, that there is a human force involved in the pouring. If you remember, we talked about the allowance of monkeys and elephants that are similar to humans, but anybody else, or even just running water, is not appropriate for washing the hands. And that's what we call koach gavra, literally the human force, and that the appearance of the water has not changed. It can't be muddied, it can't be already used for something else, it can't be water that was used for dyeing, dy, I think. And b'diavad, even if there is no revi'it of water there, or a vessel or human force, since the water does in fact clean one for prayer, it is the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah that Al Netilat Yadayim is recited. So that's, I'm not sure if that's specifically for women or not, but it's based on what we just said about the reason for washing. If the appearance of the water has changed and has become unacceptable for washing before a meal, one may use it to wash your hands for shacharit, but instead recite al nekiyat yadayim or al nekiyat kapayim, which is the b'diavad blessing that we make before not washing our hands for the meal. When we talked about food, etc., we talked about covering our hands with a cloth or gloves because of that reason of the Rosh. However, Mishnah Berurah and Berurah Halacha state that according to many Achronim, even if the water becomes invalid for washing before a meal, one may recite Al Netilat Yadayim when washing before shacharit, because the water does clean her hands enough for prayer. So to end this amazing halacha, I'll try to translate as best as possible. Rabbi Akiva was in jail. We all know that. We also know that he's one of the 10 martyrs. And so the Midrash says, and I unfortunately did not have not have a English translation, but it says that Rabbi Akiva was in jail and Yoshua Hagarsi was serving him. Every day he would bring in enough water. We don't know what that means, but basically it was half to be used for washing his hands in the morning and half was to drink. And one day the guard or the warden found him and says, or saw the amount of water that Yoshua was bringing to Rabbi Akiva, and says, "Today your water is in excess. Maybe you are trying to dig under the wall of the jail." If you remember, in those days, most people, unless they could afford it, did not have a wood or stone flooring. It was all dirt. We talked about that, about sweeping the floor for Shabbat. And he says, maybe you're trying to dig under the wall of the jail. And so he poured out half and he gave him half. And as he went into Rabbi Akiva, he said, give me water to wash my hands. And Yoshua said to him, Rabbi, they're not enough for you to drink, so why would you waste the water to wash your hands? And Rabbi Akiva answered beautifully, what should I do that the rabbi said that whoever is lenient or uncaring about washing their hands is taken away from this world. It is better that I die physically because I didn't drink enough water, but I don't want to die two deaths, which include the death in this world and the death in the next world because of the sin of not washing hands. And therefore, he did not eat anything until he washed his hands. And so that might sound like a compromise, and maybe it was, but bottom line is, washing out of our hands in the morning is very, very important. And we'll stop here and open up for questions.